Hello and welcome to my top 10 Resident Evil games of all time. Now, a little bit of just to get out of the way straight away, this is straight after Resident Evil 8 has just been released, Resident Evil Village. So it might change in the future, depending on more Resident Evil games, which, let's face it, there's going to be more Resident Evil games at some point. But anyways, starting off with my top 10 picks. This is my number 10, the original Resident Evil. Now, with the original Resident Evil, for me, it was the last game that I played in the original Resident Evil trilogy. So, I first came to this series through Resident Evil 2, then I played 3, then I played 1. And 1 might look a little bit dated, and it's pre-rendered graphics and stuff like that, and yeah, it's clearly not as pretty looking as Resident Evil 2. Do not be fooled, it is still fantastic. That Spencer, the Spencer Mansion, it's just one of those locations that is kind of just burnt into my memory. I could be using my brain power for a lot more useful things in life, but I have a certain bit of my brain dedicated to the layout of the Resident Evil games and other stuff like Metal Gear Solid and things like that. But speaking of Resident Evil 1, yeah, it's definitely not as scary as the others, but that is only because I came to this after playing Resident Evil 2 and 3. But still, it's a stellar first entry. It basically, of course, it put on the map Resident Evil for the world to play and love. It's a bit more of a methodical style of game as well. So, as I was saying before, you have the Spencer Mansion, and the Spencer Mansion is pretty much just a big giant puzzle that you have to figure out through actually doing puzzles and acquiring keys to unlock doors and stuff like that, so you can progress throughout the mansion. And of course, along the way you are pursued by zombies and all other kinds of biological weapons, which are all fine and dandy. The combat, it's okay. I personally really like the way the original Resident Evils play. Not many people do. It's because of that the tricky thing that people find tricky, which is tank controls, which is you have to hold forward on the D-pad, and depending on the direction of your character, you're always going to be going forward, but the camera changes so it can disorientate people. I personally think it's great for a survival horror game, and do bear in mind, Resident Evil 1 was the one that coined that term of survival horror. Basically, it means enemies can be tough and you have limited resources, so saves, ammo, health, that kind of thing. What else to say about this classic? It's got the best voice acting in any video game ever. I would highly recommend, if you have not played it and if you have no want to play it, I'd still recommend you just go on YouTube and you just search up that Resident Evil dialogue. It is it's quite juicy. Anyways, that's enough of Resident Evil 1. Pretty much said all that I can say about it. Let us move on to my next pick. Okay, so here's my number 9 pick, and it's a strange one that I included this into it because it's the one that many people hate the most, but not me. There's worse Resident Evil games than this one. But yes, I do like Resident Evil 6 a little bit more than the original Resident Evil. Now, why is that? It is because it is the most goofiest, funniest, bloody game to play in co-op ever, really. It is absolutely bonkers. Long gone are the days of survival horror in this franchise. Well, I say that, there were other games that came out afterwards that kind of revamped that, but at the time that this game came out in 2012, I believe Resident Evil 6 came out, you had two of the previous Resident Evil games were like more aiming towards action-orientated style, and then this one is just like completely bonkers. I'm playing the, as you can see in the footage, the Leon campaign here, which was supposed to be supposedly the more like survival horror campaign out of the 3 campaigns in the main game, but it's totally not. It's totally action. Look, like Leon, you're dual wielding like pistols, so it's nowhere near. And I think I have like over 100. Yeah, I have like 120 bullets for my pistol. So it's like you're not conserving ammo. You're not conserving like health items and stuff like that. You get them all the time, and it's basically just non-stop action throughout all the 3 campaigns. I should really talk about the 3 campaigns actually as well, because that was kind of a point to make. Whereas other Resident Evil games would focus on like one character, this game has 3 stories running in conjunction towards one another, all at the same time. So you had Jake's campaign, which is kind of like the new unique spin on Resident Evil, on the formula, the I don't want to say the 3D era of Resident Evil games, but like the action era of Resident Evil, let's say, like Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, Jake, he was more of just like he played similar to like Leon and Chris. To be fair, they all play exactly the same, really, except Jake gets like kung fu moves because of his heritage, which I won't spoil her. You should play the game or watch it. So Jake has like a nice mixed match of like kung fu fighting and like just gunplay. Then you have Chris's campaign, which I have to say is kind of, for me, the weakest. I liked Chris's campaign in 5, and in 6 it's just, I don't know, it's kind of like a little bit of a downer. Chris's campaign a little bit. But hey, it's Resident Evil. Is it supposed to be like an uplifting, like fun time? Yes, it is actually, in a bizarre way. Definitely the highlight for me of Resident Evil 6 was like the return of Leon, Scott Kennedy here, and yeah, they try and like bring it back to like Resident Evil 2-ish kind of like vibe. Like they have a new town right at the beginning. I can't remember the name of the town. Who cares? The only town that like people should remember about that franchise is Raccoon City, because it's such an iconic name and like location in like the series. I'm seriously struggling to remember the name of this town that we're fighting in right here. But anyways, the fact is, it's kind of like, hey look, the zombies back. So Leon is supposed to be like the more classic style Resident Evil, even though it's not. It's still action orientated. Chris is supposed to resemble like what came before, like Resident Evil 5, high action. Some of the enemies have like weapons and guns and stuff like that, which is, you know, uncharacteristically not really RE classic style. And then Jake was supposed to be like a new twist, but he's kind of like more the same, of like just Leon and Chris, his campaigns. And that's something else to note as well. This game continues on the co-op action from Resident Evil 5. Whereas in Resident Evil 5 it was totally tacked on right at the end, like the last year of development of Resident Evil 5. Through games like Gears of War, I'm pretty sure. This one was built from the ground up with like co-op in mind. So like you have 6 characters. You have Leon, Helena, Jake and Sherry, and Chris and Pierre. I think he's called Pierre. Yes. And that's pretty much all I can say. It's my 9th favourite Resident Evil game. I don't hate Resident Evil 6 nearly as much as everyone else does. I still find it very, very enjoyable. Like, there are plot points in all the Resident Evil games that are like just goofy and stupid, and I think people generally kind of forget at times that that's kind of the vibe that Resident Evil should be. It's been like that since the very beginning. I call it charming, actually. Like, it's a very charming franchise. But enough of Resident Evil 6. Let's continue onwards, see what my next pick is. And my number 8 pick here is Resident Evil 7. So it's like the revamped style of RE, and it's not the actual first time Resident Evil went first person. They went first person in the year 2000 with a game called Resident Evil Survivor, or I think it might have been called Gun Survivor in like some countries. Anyways, we're not going to talk about that one. That one's horrible. But this one was just one of those games that I missed initially. I played this like 3-4 years after. I played it 3 years after its original release. I have to say, I can't believe that I decided to miss out on this one straight away. I might have just been in a like a all RE'd out kind of mood, like I've had a huge fill of Resident Evil and I needed a break. But boy howdy, like the Baker family here are the main attraction of like Resident Evil 7. It's basically just, it's a lot of horror tropes all thrown into one. So there's a lot of I'm not gonna like go through all the horror tropes, but there's a lot of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre influences here and stuff like that. There's something wrong with the family. Ooh, we gotta figure out. Granny's the freakiest when she's just. I love that little detail as well when like Granny will basically just like, she'll track you, so her head will move just watching it. So you kind of like, is she comatose? But she's not. She's always watching. Always watching. Yeah. So Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. It was announced. To no one's surprise. I think some people are generally surprised that the franchise keeps going, but like this is the thing about Resident Evil. There she is. God damn, she's creepy. I still hate it, the way she looks at you. What was I trying to say? I was trying to say that like it reinvents itself all the time, and it's a tricky thing that not many people can pull off, but like Capcom seems to do it all the time. And yeah, it was brilliant. I think it's clearly inspired by that PT demo way back, and yeah, because like I believe the first footage of this was basically Capcom saying we've got a new horror thing, and it's going to be in VR, and it's called Kitchen. And even at that point, people were saying it's Resident Evil. And then I think it was at like a Sony event that they basically announced it saying it's Resident Evil 7, folks. It's like, hell yeah. But the main point of the game is you're trying to escape the house here, the spooky haunted house, and you've got the lovely Bakers that you have to deal with. So the Bakers are basically like the main attraction, the boss fights of the game. There are other enemies, and this is why I put it at like the number 8 slot here in my list. It's brought down a little bit by the fact that there's an enemy type that I'm just gonna say it right now. They call them molded, and yeah, they're pretty cool like looking enemy, but that's the point. They're the only enemy in the game. There's not a lot of variation. The only variation is through the Baker family themselves, when you encounter them and see their changes and stuff like that. But overall, I was generally surprised by this game. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and I couldn't believe that like I didn't buy this day one. But hey, I got around to it, and hopefully I would recommend it to anyone, this game. And a little thing about me is I'm not really big on horror, so I don't like being spooked, and hey, I managed to get through it. And there was one spooky area that really freaked me out, even though it might not have shown in my playthrough. But there's the child's playroom. That area, I don't like it, and I don't like to think about it. So let's move on, see what I've chosen next. Okay, so my number 7 pick here is the original Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Now, like back in the day, Yes, I played this as after Resident Evil 2, but I did not finish it before finishing Resident Evil 1 because of this guy right here, Nemesis. I always found him too challenging, and a little bit of a secret for you guys. As a kid, I was a little, like, just a complete little bitch, so I'd play things on easy difficulties, and there was a point in this game where the easy difficulty in this game is completely overpowered, because you start off with like 3 first aid sprays, assault rifle, and it's a complete joke of a game. So I haven't actually ever finished this game on easy difficulty, because even as a kid I was just like, this is too easy. Here's the little trick of like getting Nemesis. You have to just run in this corner and then you get stuck, and then you can take him down. Yeah, in this playthrough that I'm doing right here, I'm trying to do the rare thing that I usually don't do, and like beat Nemesis at every point. This took a lot of research to find out, because definitely in my normal playthroughs, just playing it in general, I never take on Nemesis. I have a playthrough on my channel that's the exception to that. But yeah, the main point of Resident Evil 3 is the main attraction. This dude, Nemesis, he's like a persistent tyrant who never goes away. Very goddamn dangerous. And yeah, it's a little bit more of like Resident Evil 2, but more action orientated, this game, if that makes sense. It is definitely the grand finale of like the original Resident Evil trilogy, of just having the absolute bombastic, all-out, like action-packed Resident Evil survival horror experience. I say that because it's still using tank controls. It's not exactly an action game. You're still limited to like camera angles, and like you are, even though it might not seem like it right here, you are limited to ammo. But I'm pretty sure we'll all be fine. We'll all be able to make it through towards the other end with like plenty of ammunition. And besides, it gives you like an ammo maker weapon right there. Yeah, there's not much else to say about this other than like they took Resident Evil 2 and they said, let's just make it action packed. So Resident Evil 2 is kind of like, let's say, Ridley Scott's Alien, and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis is James Cameron's Aliens. It's completely all-out action, even though there's not many bosses, and it's mainly just Nemesis right there. I'm trying to talk enough so I show you me beating him, but it looks like he's not going down. Maybe you go down after this. Come on, go down, you bitch. He's not going down. He is very tough as well, I have to point that out. So if you want to like take him on, this is the first time that you have the option of taking him on. He's very difficult, and obviously there's like tips and tricks out there that you can watch and see. And as you can see here, I'm using this technique of just, there, we got him. Right, I showed off Nemesis being like getting downed, because you can't kill him, he always comes back. But if you actually manage to like down him, he will give you like a nice goodie. Anyways, that's enough of the original Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Let's move on to my next pick. Okay, so my number 6 pick here is Resident Evil 5. Now, a lot of people were disappointed in Resident Evil 5. Me, not so much. This was like one of my most anticipated games, pretty much of all time, and I think, if people remember, that might not be too far-fetched for a lot of people, solely because of that one game, Resident Evil 4. So 5 had a huge amount of anticipation. Firstly, it was like one of the main characters is coming back, Chris Redfield, and then it was the location. It was set in Africa, and it was supposed to be. I can't really remember how they advertised it actually. I think before they showed off any trailers, they were saying obviously it was a next gen game. It was going to come out on the next gen consoles at the time, which were then the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. And yeah, so it was set in Africa, and they were saying about like it's like survival horror in broad daylight kind of deal. And I recall a lot of like them talking about little things like when you come out of buildings, like your eyes will readjust to the brightness of the African sun, and it sounded all very cool and stuff. But mainly it was the fact that it was another mainline Resident Evil title, Resident Evil 5, and the fact that it was coming straight after 4. So I think it's not too far-fetched to say that people expect sequels to be better than like the previous iteration in the series. So Resident Evil 5 had a lot to live up to, and for me it lived up to the mostly it lived up to all the hype. But there are little points of questionability. So first things first, Sheva. Yes, she... I have a love-hate thing with Sheva. She can be a really, really bad AI at times. She's going to die in this playthrough in a little moment here. So, yes, she was definitely tacked on right at the end, because all the previous footage and the years coming up to this game were just showing Chris on a solo adventure in Africa. And there was no Sheva to be seen whatsoever throughout the entirety of the entire game. Now, I'm pretty sure... There you go, she died right there. Great. Sheva! I'm pretty sure she was add-on, because Capcom was looking at games like Gears of War. Gears of War just came out like a few years before this game. And they would have said, there's a big push, definitely from Microsoft at this point, for co-op experiences, and co-op stuff sells apparently. I don't believe for a second that she was ever supposed to be included as part of the original game. I don't accept that like theory whatsoever. I reckon it was definitely just like looking at like the industry and going, hey, we could sell more by making it co-op. And to be honest with you, for the most part, I really like the fact that they did that. Kind of breaks like the whole I'm on my own and I need to survive on my own. Now you have a partner. But considering that like Chris has always been part of a team, apart from like Resident Evil, like Veronica, let's just ignore that one for now. But Chris is part of Alpha Squad, so yeah, he had squad mates, and it's doing the whole thing that like Alpha Team never did. They never stuck together. It was always like, let's split up, as Barry would say. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about Resident Evil 5. It's not as good as 4, but it's still bloody fantastic. And this is a little thing that like I just want to know. I think the most expensive game to date to make has been Resident Evil 6. For me, Resident Evil 6 is a clear downgrade in like its look, like it's just its graphics. Resident Evil 5 just looks so bloody good in comparison to 6 for me. And besides, Resident Evil 5, it has an epic match between two of the main rivals of the Resident Evil series, so that's what like boosts it straight up into this position right here. But again, I'm just trying to try and like get rid of Axeman, just to see us kill him. If we can kill him, it's getting very close. There you go, he died. Nice. Axeman there, he was supposed to like, he was showing off in like some of the early trailers, and he's like, ooh, he's got to be the new Chainsaw guy, and turns out you only fight him in this first bit. So there you go, once you beat him, he's done. Axeman is not in it for the rest of the game. Alright, let us move on to our next pick. Okay, so my number 5 pick here is Resident Evil 2, the original Resident Evil 2. Now, this was the first game that I played, actually, in the Resident Evil franchise, and it was also what I found the most scariest, because I was at that ripe young age to be still scared by zombies and stuff like that. And Resident Evil 2, I recall it very vividly in my mind. I was at like a uncle's place playing it, and I was not playing it actually. It's a cousin of mine, and yeah, I thought it was absolutely terrifying. And I played it, well, I saw it being played with Claire at the time. I didn't know that Leon was a thing. I thought it was just like, oh, it's like this woman, and she's fighting the zombie horde, and like you can die very easily. And it was like, oh, it's all super scary. But Resident Evil 2 was made by Hideki Kamiya, the man who would later go on to create Devil May Cry and spawn one of my other favourite franchises of all time. Resident Evil 2, it's similar to Resident Evil 1, but it's just bigger, so there's just more to it. I will not say it's like action-packed like Resident Evil 3 is, but it's definitely the most beloved one out of the PlayStation games. I know that Resident Evil 1 and 2 have their fans, but like on PlayStation, it's usually always up there in like the top 10 lists. I want to say Metal Gear Solid is usually the #1 game on those kind of lists for PlayStation 1, but Resident Evil 2 is usually always just behind it in the number 2 slots. I've put it as my number. What have I put it as? It's my number 5 here, and that's only because of some of the newer Resident Evil title games have just been so good recently. But usually Resident Evil 2 Classic, this one, is straight up on my top list, like right in like the number 2, 3 slots. But because of like recent games that came out, it's been pushed down to number 5, which is still not bad. But like, what I'm trying to say is, these Resident Evil games are bloody good, and it's hard to like spot them and place them. So this is the last of the original Resident Evil classics that are going to be on my list, and from the PlayStation 1 era. And again, as I was saying before, Resident Evil 2, it's more like Resident Evil 1 but more. In fact, it went through a turbulent development cycle. So as many people know, the game was pretty much like 60 to 80% completed, and then they completely scrapped it and they went over and redid it. And yeah, that was a bloody good decision, because this game is phenomenally good as like a classic RE title. It is definitely I want to say it's the best out of the classic RE titles, but there's one other game that I have on this list that is also using tank controls that I've put above this. So I guess that'll be the exception. That's the one that is redefined like the tank control based RE game. But this one for the time was definitely perfect in every way. It was the best selling Resident Evil title on PlayStation, I do believe. And you get a lot of bang for your buck here. So you get 2 campaigns, 4 campaigns if you play them the other way around, with tiny story deviations if you do that. But I believe the chronological order, I mean, you can play them whatever way you want, but like story-wise, the chronological order of like RE2's story is Claire A, Leon B, if that makes sense to people. And what else to say about Resident Evil 2? I shouldn't really be saying it's more of the same, because Well, it is, but like it's just the presentation, the color, the enemy variation, the boss battles as well. It's just, for me, it's a far step above the previous title, the original Resident Evil from 1996, and yeah, I would say that the police station is just as iconic as the Spencer Mansion. Absolutely. And there's a reason why, when you're gonna see my next picks, that like the original 2 Resident Evil games are so beloved. So, that being said, Resident Evil 2, my number 5 pick. Check it out if you haven't already. Or hey, just check out my playthrough on my channel. And yeah, let's just move along and see the next pick that I've chosen. Okay, so my number 4 pick here is the most recent title within the Resident Evil franchise, and that is Resident Evil Village. Or, because of like the Roman numeral, as I like to just call it, and everyone's just calling it, it's the 8th main title in the Resident Evil franchise. So it's Resident Evil 8 Village, and it's continuing the story of Ethan Winters. Yes, werewolves, lycans, vampire ladies, frog people who are kind of like fish. You have it all in this game. So, with this one, it's another, as you can see, another first-person title, which I don't know why so many people can be a bit iffy on that, but like I really dig the first-person perspective. I do like the third-person Resident Evil games, and I still reckon they will do those, but there are some that are just like just more like, it just draws you more into the atmosphere of the game, I reckon, especially with this one, with it being first person. And yeah, so I put this one above Resident Evil 7 based on the location variation and the little thing that Resident Evil 7 was missing of enemy variation. So you do have different enemy types in this game. You have about 4 or 5, I can't really remember off the top of my head, but yeah, you definitely do have more variation with the enemies and more variation within the enemy designs themselves. So like the Lycans have they have like the standard guys, but they use different like weapons and stuff like that, or the hands, and then you have like big armored dudes as well. I like that little detail that they're just waiting. So this was like this section here in Resident Evil Village is very reminiscent of the opening kind of to Resident Evil 4, except it's a bit more relaxed than Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is a bit more like the villagers are after you straight away. We're going to talk about Resident Evil 4 later. Resident Evil Village, yes, it is. Ooh, it's so good, and it's definitely straight up there in like the best Resident Evil games of all time for me. Having only played it once as well, and yeah, it adds more. It just adds more from what like they originally put into Resident Evil 7. I think that's all I can say really. It's just more variation, and it's a kick-ass like location. It's goofy in the sense that like you have to save your daughter Rose, and how is it goofy? It's goofy purely by the fact that like you're kidnapped at the beginning, and then your vehicle crashes due to attack by Lycans, and you just happen to be at the location that like Rose was took. So it's just one of those things that's kind of goofy. Essentially, you've been relocated to, unbeknownst to Ethan, you've been relocated to this Eastern European country that just happens to be right next to the location that like the dangerous people who want to do harm to Ethan's family are. You know, it's one of those things. It's like, couldn't you just put him in the middle of America? I guess maybe not, because then you wouldn't have a very interesting location, would you? And we've already done like Louisiana. Oh, I don't know what else to say. It's just really good. You should play it. And that's not really much of a review, is it? Bear in mind, these are not really reviews. They're just like my initial thoughts of like the franchise and where I want to pick and put stuff within the games. That's something else to mention. They also brought back the Merchant with the Duke in this game, and it's a lot of like upgrading your weapons, upgrading yourself. Just more of that kind of like arcadey kind of style action adventure thing. You had like the case as well of the item case. It was very much just the exact same as it was from Resident Evil 4. So there's a lot of Resident Evil 4 influence in this. More arcadey kind of style. And again, the enemy design. I love the Lycans. I guess one of the things that I would say that I'm a little bit disappointed by is the Lycans. Actually, no. I'm going to retract that. What I was about to say. I was going to say that I didn't like the fact that they weren't in it enough. I reckon all the enemies get enough time to like breathe and like have their own space within the game, you know. And the Lycans are definitely like the main attraction, I reckon, to this game, as well as let's face it, Lady Dimitrescu, of course. She was just basically the marketing for the game, and then like sold, cha-ching, we got all the money. Let's make the next game, hopefully. So, hey, as they said, his story comes to a close, but maybe there'll be more stories that open up. Right, let's stop talking about Resident Evil 8 Village here and like get on to the next bit. Okay, so my number 3 pick is the Resident Evil 2 remake. Now, this was pretty much one of my most apprehensive RE titles going into. I don't know why that was, because like it turned out to be great. Hence the reason why I put it at my number 3 pick. I'm kind of a purist when it comes to like remaking them, and I was initially put off by the fact that it was going to be in third person. I wanted it to be exactly like one of the previous remakes, the RE1 remake. So just a bigger version of Resident Evil 2, but like still using the tank controls of old and those lovely camera angles, which add so much atmosphere to a Resident Evil game. But I'm glad to say that like Resident Evil 2 was a very pleasant surprise. My worry was it was going to be kind of like Resident Evil 4-ish. It's not anything like that, and the enemies themselves are super tough, which I love. And as you can see there, I've just been attacked by a zombie. I have a defense weapon that is like continued forward from the original remake, and yeah, it's more survival horror than like action-paced game, but just in a third-person perspective. So like it's still the same tropes. You have like a limited amount of resources, you know, ammo, health. There is infinite save in this game if you choose. I've never played it on like the absolute hardest difficulties that give you ink ribbons. I don't really care really to go back. I think that's a thing of older generation games that like I can do without really. I just prefer to have like checkpoints and stuff like that and like infinite saves. The combat, no, it's not just like Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is like arcadey action, and with this one it's more, I guess it's accuracy based. So if you move or if you're shooting too quickly, you're not going to hit your shots. You have to wait and really aim and take your time to like aim up your shots and take your shots, which is great. It's fantastic. It's pretty much just And look at that guy. I've shot that guy that first zombie in front of me so many times, he's just not gone down. He's still kicking. So they take a huge amount of bullets to take down. That guy specifically, I think he's down now, but that guy must have taken like 10. He's still going. Oh my god, I've put so many headshots in this guy. I'm watching the footage whilst like talking as well, so we can talk about like the gore as well in this game. They had like a gore engine, so you could shoot the limbs off and their arms and legs would fall off and then they'll crawl towards you and stuff like that. It's like very nice, very gory. And of course people say, is it essential? And you have to say, yes, of course it's essential. It was great for what it was. Ooh, I missed a shot there. I don't like missing shots because, you know, you only have a limited amount of bullets. Now, what else to say about it? It took ages to come out. I think people were asking for this one straight after the original remake came out for GameCube. So it was like straight away, instantly. It's like, when's the second remake go come out? Now, I have to say, I'm not overly keen on like every single blue game in existence getting a remake. Just because of the fact that like it kind of defeats the whole aim of creativity if you're just like redoing the same thing over and over and over. But I mean, this is one of those perfect examples of they remade something, but like they made it its own. So again, it's just like the whole perspective is third person, without any camera angles, without any camera controls. It has a kind of Resident Evil 4 like control scheme, except with that like whole you have to stand still to aim properly and get like the best shots from your weapons. And let's just face it, the RE engine just looks absolutely gorgeous in first person and in third person. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do next with the Resident Evil franchise. Whether it's going to be another game that's kind of like Resident Evil 2 Remake. Let's not talk about Resident Evil 3 Remake. Resident Evil 3 Remake was okay, but in comparison to everything else that's came before it, it was really, you could tell that was rushed and pants. But if they made a next title that's kind of like Resident Evil 2 Remake here, I would not be disappointed whatsoever. It's a fantastic addition, fantastic remake, and just it's one of those games that if you've not played it, hey, you should go out and play it already. Right, that's enough of me waffling about Resident Evil 2. That is Resident Evil 2 Remake, shall I say. Let's move on, see what my next pick is. Okay, so my second favorite Resident Evil game of all time here is the original Resident Evil 1 remake. And I don't know why I said original, there's only one Resident Evil 1 remake. Whatever, who cares? It's Resident Evil 1 for GameCube, and it was redone by the godfather of the entire franchise, pretty much, Shinji Mikami. And hell, this came out in 2002 on a GameCube. It looks unreal for like that system. I dare even say it looks better than Resident Evil 4. And the trick to that is, as another guy, Donkey, put blatantly, it uses pre-rendered backgrounds. Really, really great looking pre-rendered backgrounds, so that you can concentrate on all the nice polygons and animations and 3D modeling on the character models and enemies. So, remake. Why have I put this above Resident Evil 2? It's because I'm a bit of a snob and a purist. I love the atmosphere of this game, and I just love the tank controls because I'm a sadist who just loves to like watch people fail at games. It's like And believe me, I failed at this game quite a bit. For the longest time, I felt I was playing it on normal difficulty when I was in fact playing it on easy difficulty. Like they have a weird way of like wording the difficulties in this game. So if you first start this remake, it will give you like a question about like walking on hikes, whether you like treacherous journeys or easy journeys or just like laid back journeys, and you expect it to be like hard, normal, easy, but it's just like it's normal, easy, very easy. It's ridiculous. Anyways, taking that aside, it's been remade by the original director of the original game. He felt like the original Resident Evil hadn't aged well, which I would disagree with. I think it's perfect in every way, as it is already on PlayStation. But that being said, he wanted to redo it, so he redid it, and this is what he made, and it was perfect. And as you can see, this is an area. This area is not in the original game, so they made all the areas virtually the same, but they added new ones and new enemy types. Well, not new enemy types. They added a new enemy, Lisa Trevor, who, hey, if you know about her, you know about her. But she's pretty freaky, pretty spooky. And this is one of the games that, like, I think a lot of the modern Resident Evil titles are missing. Spookiness. I played recently Resident Evil 8, as I said before, but like even Resident Evil 8, not that spooky. There's one freaky bit in Resident Evil 8 that I think everyone knows what I mean when I say that. But on the whole, it's not that scary. It's more of just an action game. And fair enough, that's what they were going for with it. This one is definitely based on like the atmosphere, and if you're playing on normal, or God help you if you play on like the hard difficulty for some reason, yes, you really do have to watch out on like your ammo count and stuff like that. You need to conserve your ammunition, absolutely 100%, especially for some of the boss fights. Same goes for like health items and stuff like that. They can be very limited in their numbers. Not only that, this game had the ingenious idea, and I'm going to spoil it right now, of making the zombies not actually disappear. So, how much should I give away with this? The enemies don't disappear. This is specifically the zombie enemies. So that might indicate something about them, that you might need to do something, or something else might happen. That's all I'm going to say. I've probably given away too much already just by saying that. But on the whole, this is the way you do a remake. You make it pretty much the exact same. In my opinion, I still love Resident Evil 2 remake, believe me. But like, as it goes for Resident Evil games, this is, and as it goes just for remakes in general, this is kind of the way. For me, it pretty much makes it play and feel exactly the same as the original, but it adds a lot more stuff, and not like just adding more stuff for the sake of adding more stuff. It adds stuff that enhances the original experience, let's put it that way. So there's areas in that enemy Lisa that add a hell of a lot more to the game. And it's unexpected as well, because like if you're playing this from the mindset of like it's going to look better than the original, but it's going to be the exact same as the original. So like the enemies are going to be here, 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 and here. The layout is going to be like this. So how I get from the mansion to the lab is this route. That is kind of still there, but they've added in like these little new areas and stuff like that, and like these little new encounters. And they play with your expectations as well. So with this one, there's like the classic RE dog trope of the dog jumps through the window. Ooh, it's a big scare in like the original PlayStation 1 area, because no one expected that for a PlayStation 1 game. this plays on that. So it has like the glass break a little bit. It's like, oh shit, the dog didn't jump through the window. Is this different? And it's like, yes, it is. But will the dog jump through the window the next time round? It's like, yes, it does. So it's like a little bit of surprise, but like a little bit of like familiarity as well. It's weird. It's almost as if like you're coming home, or it's like a nice warm, cozy blanket. This game, which is bizarre to say because it's like Resident Evil. It's like full of zombies and horrors and stuff like that. But hey, it has this like goofy charm to it. I don't know how best to explain Resident Evil. It's one of those things that I reckon it is definitely solidified itself for me as like one of the best franchises of all time. It's one that I just find a complete joy to play every time. Anyways, enough of my number 2 pick. Let us move on and find out what my number 1 pick of Resident Evil is of all time. Ooh. And of course, I had to pick it. I was debating whether or not it should be Resident Evil 1 remake or this, and my number 1 pick, it has to be Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 was just... So at the time, Resident Evil was getting a bit stale with like its gameplay, of like camera angles and stuff like that. I believe the games that were prior to this were the Resident Evil Outbreak games, and that was continuing on like the whole trope of the camera angles and stuff like that, of the third person tank controls. This one has modernized it by truly making it third person. So it's not tank controls per se, although you could kind of make an argument that it kind of is a little bit, solely based by the fact that like your movement is all based on just one analog stick. There's no aiming with like the right stick, whatever. The right stick, the C stick of the GameCube controller, basically moves the camera around. But hell, you have this third person perspective here, which is basically another way of saying over the shoulder camera. Over the shoulder, shall I say? If I can speak correctly. And yeah, this is the first encounter in Resident Evil 4, as you can see. It just tells you immediately that this is different from all the other Resident Evils out there. You have the villagers, as you can see, and they're very complex. They will react to where you shoot them on their bodies, which was very brand new at the time. You couldn't really do this on... No, you couldn't do this on PlayStation. They managed to port this onto PlayStation 2, which could do this stuff, but like, little fun fact about the... Chainsaw Guy's getting a bit too close there. Little fun fact about like the reason why this came on GameCube. Pretty sure in the year 2000, Capcom made a deal to bring a load of games to the GameCube, but the reason specifically, from what I've heard, and I hope this is true, why Resident Evil 4 originally came out on the GameCube was because the GameCube could do fog better. Something as basic as just like an ambient thing like fog. And that was the clincher that made them say, hey, we'll just put it on GameCube. Again, they eventually ported it to like pretty much every system ever, apart from the original Xbox. I don't think the original Xbox got... No, the original Xbox did not get Resident Evil 4. 360 did. I don't know what else to say. It is a game also made by Shinji Mikami. It is more of an arcadey kind of like run and gun style of game. Now I think about it, it definitely has that kind of feel and vibe. And they were still, at this point, they were still trying to go for the whole survival horror thing. But like, at this point, when Leon is jumping through windows and stuff like that, suplexing enemies, which you can do, blasting hordes with like his pistol shotguns, grenades, and all that stuff. You've kind of passed that. You've entered the realm of just awesome, essentially. And this game, believe me, it's awesome. There's a reason why it's like one of the #1 action games of all time. Still. Oh, look at that! They smashed down the door. I'm getting into it already. And this is a testament to how good this game is. There's usually points where I decide I'm just gonna boot up Resident Evil 4 and I'm gonna play this first village section, and then I play the first village section and I'm like, this is great. Then I end up playing a little bit more of it, and I play a bit more, then a bit more, and then I'm like, oh, I'm at the castle. How did that happen? And then I'm like, oh, I'm at the island. How did that happen? And then I'm literally at the bit where I'm just about to go up the lift to face Sadler. I'm like, oh, what the hell? You know what? I think I'll beat the game. And at that point, I just beat the game. So, like, literally, it's one of those things that I don't think it even. I believe it's even one of those games that even if I'm in a bad mood, I'll just pick up Resident Evil 4 and like. Or if I'm feeling like down that day or something like that, I'll just pick it up, I'll play it, and I'll just like go, hey, life's not so bad. So there you have it. That's my top 10 Resident Evil games for now. We'll have to see if there's another Resident Evil and how that will compare. But for now, that's it. Resident Evil 4 is definitely right up there at the top. It was just something, it was a breath of fresh air when it came out, and it still is. I can't put anything above it. It's one of those ones that not only did it like boost like the Resident Evil franchise, it pretty damn sure it modernized third-person controls a little bit. I know there was other games that like did that, but I'm definitely sure it inspired like a lot of like Gears of War and stuff like that, and a load of games afterwards. But anyways, if you have enjoyed my my list of Resident Evil games, please do like and subscribe. And hey, if your list is different than mine, please just let me know in the comments. I'd be very happy to like look through and see what your favorite games are. It doesn't have to be 10 particularly. You can boil it down to like your top 3 Resident Evils if you want. But it'd be interesting, because for me it was tough to decide this, and ultimately in the end it was a battle between the for me it was a battle between the original Resident Evil remake and this. But this just clenched it just by the fact that like it does what all games should do. It should be fun, and this is for me just one of the top echelon tier games of fun. Again, as I said before, and I keep repeating myself, it's one of those games that I just pick up and I play, and then I just can't put it down. I have to play it. Alright, that's enough for now. I hope you're having a nice day, and I'll see you in whatever I do next. Alright, bye.